Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're stationed deep in the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia, where the Blue Ridge Mountains rise like silent sentinels, cloaked in ancient mists that seem to swallow the light. It's a place where history doesn't just linger, it breathes. One crisp autumn evening in 2018, Sergeant Elias Thorne, a seasoned infantryman with tours in Afghanistan under his belt, stepped out of his barracks for a smoke. The air was unnaturally still, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears like a warning. Then, from the tree line, a thick fog rolled in, faster than any weather pattern he'd ever seen. And in that mist, he swore he saw them. Figures in tattered grey uniforms, muskets slung over shoulders, marching silently toward him. By the time the fog cleared, they were gone. But so was one of his squad mates. This isn't just a ghost story. It's rooted in the shadowed annals of American history. The Shenandoah Valley, stretching over 200 miles through Virginia, was a crucible during the Civil War. From 1861 to 1865, it saw relentless campaigns under generals like Stonewall Jackson and Philip Sheridan. The valley's strategic rivers, like the Shenandoah itself, and its fertile farmlands, made it a lifeline for the Confederacy. But amid the battles, places like Kernstown, Cedar Creek, and New Market, there are accounts that defy explanation. One persistent legend speaks of a Confederate regiment, the 23rd Virginia Infantry, vanishing into a sudden mist during a reconnaissance patrol in October 1864. Over 150 men, led by Captain Jeremiah Hale, were scouting near Front Royal when a dense fog enveloped them. Union scouts reported hearing muffled cries, and then nothing. Searchers turned up no bodies, no equipment, only abandoned campfires still smouldering. Official records dismissed it as desertion or ambush, but locals whispered of something otherworldly, a valley curse that claimed souls. Fast forward to the modern era. The U.S. Army maintains several installations in the region, including the fictionalized but realistically inspired Shenandoah Valley Training Center, SVTC, a sprawling base near Luray, Virginia, used for maneuver training and special operations prep. Built in the 1940s on land scarred by Civil War skirmishes, SVTC's barracks, Hakim Block 7 in particular, are said to stand on the very ground where those Confederates disappeared. Over the years, declassified reports and veteran forums have trickled out stories of unexplained phenomena, equipment malfunctions, spectral sightings, even temporary vanishings. The Army attributes it to fatigue or environmental factors, but those who've served there know better. Tonight, we'll dive into testimonies from soldiers who experienced the haunted barracks firsthand. These are their words, pieced together from interviews and after-action reports. Buckle up. This mist doesn't just hide the past, it pulls you in. Chapter 1. Whispers in the Valley. My name is Specialist Marcus Reyes, formerly with 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, before a knee injury bumped me to a training billet. I PCS'd to Shenandoah Valley Maneuver Training Area in late August 2017. The post was smaller than Bragg, quiet, almost sleepy. But the terrain made up for it. Steep forested ridges, narrow valleys, river crossings that turned into thigh-deep suckholes during rain. Perfect for dismounted maneuver and night land navigation. Block 7 was our home for the 6-month rotation. 2 wings of rooms branching off a long central hallway. Communal head at each end, day room with beat-up couches and a perpetually broken ping-pong table. The building smelled faintly of mildew and old motor oil, no matter how many windows we cracked. My roommate was P.F.C. Jamal Jenkins, 19, straight out of OSUT, still had that wide-eyed shine most guys lose after their first deployment window. We got along fine. He kept his side neat, didn't snore too loud. First couple weeks were standard. Early morning PT on the gravel track, weapons qual, classes on OPFOR tactics, then field problems that ran us ragged until dark. Nights were when the place started feeling wrong. Not haunted house wrong. At first, just off. The hallway lights would dim for no reason, then snap back bright. Doors that latched properly during the day would swing open at 0300. Small stuff you could chalk up to old wiring or settling foundations. Then the sounds began. It started on a Wednesday. Lights out at 2200. I was scrolling on my phone under the blanket when I heard it. Boots. Not the rubber-soled army boots we wear. Hobnailed, leather-soled marching boots hitting packed dirt. The cadence was slow, deliberate, maybe platoon strength. I froze, listening. The sound wasn't coming from outside, it was inside the building, travelling down the corridor toward our room. I sat up. Jenkins was dead asleep, mouth open. I grabbed my flashlight, eased the door open an inch. Hallway empty. Lights on, buzzing faintly. The footsteps kept coming. Closer. Closer. Then stopped right outside our door. Silence. I waited 10 heartbeats, then stepped out. Nothing. Just the smell of wet wool and black powder drifting past, like someone had walked by smoking an old pipe. I swept the beam left and right. Empty. But the air was cold enough that my breath fogged. Back inside, I shook Jenkins. "Yo, you hear that?" He groaned. "Hear what, man?" "Footsteps, like a whole squad marching." He rubbed his eyes. "You're tripping. Probably the pipes." I didn't push it. Went back to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time, same direction. This time the footsteps paused outside our door. Then a low voice, thick southern accent, barely audible. "Form. Form up. Mist's rolling in." I bolted upright so fast I cracked my head on the bunk frame. Jenkins sat up too, wide awake now. "You heard that?" I hissed. He nodded, eyes big. "Yeah." We both grabbed phones, turned on record. Nothing but our breathing for 30 seconds. Then, clear as day through the thin walls, "Captain says, hold the line. Yankees at the river ford." The voice faded. Footsteps resumed, moving away toward the stairwell. We sat there in the dark, neither of us willing to open the door again. Next morning at chow, I asked around discreetly. Turns out half the platoon had heard variations. One guy swore he saw a shadow in kepi hat cross the hallway mirror at 2 a.m. Another said his wall locker door kept opening, revealing neatly folded butternut jackets that weren't there when he looked twice. Platoon Sergeant Harlan, E7, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, called me into his office after formation. "Reyes," he said, closing the door. "You been asking questions." "Yes, Sergeant." He leaned back. "Listen, Block 7 sits on ground where men disappeared in 1864. Whole company walked into fog and never came out. Locals say they're still marching, still looking for their regiment. Most people laugh it off. I don't. I've been here 4 years. I've seen things I can't explain, cold spots that follow you. names written in condensation on windows that weren't there 5 minutes earlier. And every October, around the anniversary, it gets worse. He tapped a manila folder on his desk. Last year, a fire team vanished for 90 minutes during a night nav. Found them sitting in a circle in the woods, staring at nothing. They said they'd been marching with the boys in grey, and the fog wouldn't let them turn back. Medics called it a shared delusion. I call it something else. He looked me dead in the eye. You hear anything else, you come to me first. Don't go playing ghost hunter. And whatever you do, don't follow the footsteps. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling tiles. Around 01:45, the footsteps returned. Slower this time, stopping longer outside our door. Then the voice again, clearer, almost pleading. "Any man here? Can you point the way home?" Jenkins whispered. "Don't answer it." I didn't, but the question hung in the air like smoke, and deep down, part of me wanted to. Chapter 2, Shadows in the Bunks. My name is Corporal Lena Vasquez, MOS 25N, Nodal Network Systems Operator Maintainer. I arrived at Shenandoah Valley Maneuver Training Area in January 2018, after 3 years at Joint Base Lewis McCord. I was part of a signals detachment supporting a Stryker Brigade combat team rotation. The post was beautiful in a rugged way, rolling ridges covered in hardwoods, the river glinting silver when the sun hit it right. But the barracks in Block 7 felt like they'd been waiting for us. Our room was on the second floor, end of the east wing, standard setup. 2 wall lockers, 2 bunks, 1 desk, narrow window overlooking the training fields that sloped down toward the river. Specialist Ji-Yeon Kim was my roommate. Quiet, meticulous, always had her gear squared away before anyone else. We worked opposite shifts half the time, so the room was rarely occupied by both of us at once. That suited me fine. I like my space. The first sign something was wrong came during in-processing week. I was setting up my battle rattle on the bunk when I noticed the mirror above the sink. It was one of those cheap institutional mirrors, slightly warped at the edges. But when I looked in it, for just a second, I didn't see my reflection clearly. There was an overlay, faint like double-exposed film, of a bearded face wearing a slouch hat, staring back. I blinked hard. Gosh, just me again, tired eyes and regulation bun. I told myself it was jet lag and bad fluorescent lighting. That night, I pulled the midnight to 0400 shift in the TOC, monitoring satellite links. When I got back around 0430, Kim was already asleep. I tried to be quiet, but as soon as I closed the door, the temperature in the room dropped. Not gradually, like someone had opened a freezer right behind me. My breath fogged. I checked the thermostat. 72 degrees. To set point, unchanged. The HVAC wasn't even running. I climbed into my bunk, pulled the poncho liner tight. Sleep came in fragments. Around 0230, I woke to movement. Not footsteps this time. Something softer, like cloth brushing cloth. I opened my eyes. Across the room, Kim's bunk was empty. Sheets still tucked military style, boots aligned underneath. But standing at the foot of her bed was a shadow. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like a long coat. No face visible, just a darker patch where the head should be. It didn't move. It just stood there. I reached for the Beretta under my pillow. Habit from overseas. But my hand closed on empty air. The pistol was still in the wall locker. The shadow tilted its head, as if listening. Then It raised one arm, slow and deliberate, pointing toward the window. I followed the gesture. Outside, the training field was gone. Thick white fog pressed against the glass, so dense I couldn't see the tree line 50 meters away. And in that fog, shapes were moving, upright, rhythmic, marching. My heart slammed against my ribs. I forced myself to speak. "Who are you?" No answer. The shadow simply lowered its arm and began to walk, sideways, impossibly toward the wall. It didn't pass through, like in movies. It merged with the cinder block, the edges fraying like smoke, until nothing remained but a faint chill lingering in that corner. I sat up, breathing hard. Kim was still gone. I checked my phone. 0247. I pulled on boots, grabbed my flashlight, stepped into the hallway. The corridor was empty, emergency lights casting long red pools. I moved toward the stairwell, calling softly, "Kim, Ji-yeon?" No response. Halfway down the hall, I heard it. A low murmur, multiple voices overlapping. Southern accents, old-fashioned phrasing. "Hold fast, boys. Yankees'll break on this ridge. Captain says the mist'll cover us. Can't see the ford. Where's the ford?" I froze. The voices weren't coming from any one direction. They seemed to rise from the floor, seep from the walls, drift down from the ceiling tiles. I swept the flashlight beam. Nothing. But the air smelled of wet wool, black powder, and something metallic, like blood just starting to dry. I reached the stairwell. Footsteps, real ones this time, coming up from below. I backed against the wall, ready to challenge. A figure rounded the landing, Kim in PTs, eyes glassy, walking like she was half asleep. "Kim!" I hissed, grabbing her arm. She startled, blinked rapidly. "Lena?" "What? I was in the head. Thought I heard someone call formation." "You weren't in the head. Your bunk was empty. There was something standing there." She looked at me like I'd lost it. "I've been in the latrine for 10 minutes. You sure you're okay?" I wasn't sure of anything anymore. We returned to the room together. The mirror was clear now. No overlay, no strange face. But when I checked the window, the fog outside had lifted slightly. In the moonlight, I could just make out the edge of the woods. And there, barely visible among the trees, a line of grey shapes standing motionless, watching the barracks. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I pulled Kim aside before formation. "You really don't remember standing at the foot of your bunk?" She shook her head. "I swear I was brushing my teeth. But I had the weirdest dream. I was marching, not running PT, marching with a musket. Fog everywhere. Someone kept saying we had to find the captain. We didn't talk about it again that day, but that evening, after chow, I found something on my wall locker door. A single brass button. Old, stamped with CSA. It wasn't there when I left for dinner. I showed it to Platoon Sergeant Harlan later that week. He looked at it for a long time, then handed it back. "Seen those before," he said quietly. "They show up sometimes, usually before things get worse." I asked what worse meant. He didn't answer right away, just stared out the window toward the river. "October's coming," he said finally. "Anniversary month. That's when the mist likes to play. And when it plays, sometimes people don't come back the same." That night the shadows returned. Not one this time. Several. They moved along the walls, like soldiers changing formation, never quite stepping into the light. And every time I closed my eyes, I heard the same whispered question from the dark. "Which way to the river, Bluebelly? Which way home?" I didn't answer. but I started sleeping with the lights on. Chapter 3. The Fog Descends. My name is Sergeant First Class Jamal Wright, MOS 68W, Combat Medic. I've been with the 82nd Airborne since 2010, 3 combat tours, 1 Purple Heart. In spring 2018, I drew a 6-month TDY to Shenandoah Valley Maneuver Training Area to run medical evacuation and prolonged field care training for rotating units. Block 7 barracks became my temporary home. 2nd floor, a northwest corner room with a view of the river bottom and the low ridge where historians say the 23rd Virginia vanished in 1864. I'd heard the stories already. Reyes and Vasquez had started talking, quietly, about footsteps, shadows, that brass CSA button Vasquez found on her wall locker. Most guys laughed it off as barracks legend, the kind of thing privates tell each other to pass time on long CQ shifts. But I'd seen enough strange things in combat zones, guys swearing they saw dead buddies standing watch, voices on open comms channels that weren't on frequency, to keep an open mind. I didn't chase ghosts, but I didn't dismiss them either. The shift happened on Thursday, October 11th, 2018, right around the anniversary window Sergeant Harlan had warned about. We'd finished a long day, classroom on casualty evacuation under fire, and then live tissue training with goats in the sim village. Everyone was beat. I crashed around 21:30 after final med checks. Lights out, room dark, except for the red glow of the exit sign bleeding under the door. At 02:15, I woke to pressure, like someone had placed a cold hand flat on my chest. Not painful, just heavy. I opened my eyes. The room was freezing. Frost had formed on the inside of the window glass in thin, feathery patterns that looked almost like old battle maps. I sat up slowly. My breath clouded in front of my face. Outside, the fog had arrived. It wasn't normal valley mist. It moved with purpose, rolling uphill against the wind, thick and opaque, swallowing the training fields, the motor pool, the tree line. Within minutes, it pressed against the barracks windows like a living thing, so dense the security lights outside turned into soft, diffused orbs. Then the sound started. Not footsteps this time. Multiple voices, muffled, urgent, overlapping, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Form on me, boys! Hold the line!" "Yankees crossing the ford. Can't see 'em through this soup." "Captain Hale! Where's the captain?" I swung my legs out of the bunk, pulled on boots without lacing them, grabbed my flashlight and a trauma kit out of habit. I stepped into the hallway. The corridor was empty, but the emergency lights flickered in slow pulses, almost rhythmic. The voices grew louder, echoing off the cinder block like they were inside the walls. I moved toward the common area at the end of the wing. That's where I found them. Reyes, Vasquez, Harlan, and 4 other guys from different platoons already gathered, faces pale under the red light. No one spoke at first. We just listened. A new voice cut through, deeper, commanding, carrying the weight of someone used to being obeyed. "Stand fast. The mist is our cover. We hold here till it lifts. No man breaks ranks." Silence followed. Then a younger-sounding voice, almost panicked. "Sergeant!" My brother was right beside me. He's gone, swallowed whole. Harlan stepped forward, voice low but steady. "Who's out there?" No answer. Instead, the temperature plunged again. My watch read 0228. Frost now crept across the vending machine glass, across the floor tiles in thin white lines. Vasquez whispered, "It's them, the 23rd. Before anyone could respond, the double doors to the stairwell burst open. No wind, no one pushing, just swung wide. A wall of fog poured in, knee-high at first, then rising fast. It smelled of damp wool, gunpowder, wet leather, and something sour like old blood. We backed up instinctively. The fog kept coming, curling around ankles, climbing legs. My skin prickled, every hair stood on end. Then shapes resolved inside it. Figures in grey, tattered shell jackets, kepis, bayoneted muskets at right shoulder shift, materialized 10 meters down the corridor. They weren't solid, but they weren't transparent either. They flickered between states like bad video feed. Faces showed, gaunt, bearded, eyes hollow but alive with desperation. One stepped closer, the sergeant ghost from the voice recordings people had captured before. He stopped at the edge of the fog bank, saluted slowly. "Which of you wears the blue now?" he asked. His voice carried the rasp of someone who'd shouted orders through cannon smoke for years. Harlan answered without hesitation. "United States Army. This ground belongs to us." The ghost sergeant gave a bitter half-smile. "Belonged to us once. Then the mist took it. Took us. Been marching ever since." Reyes spoke up, voice tight. "What do you want?" "To find the captain," the apparition answered. "To finish the patrol. To go home." Vasquez added quietly, "We can't help you cross, but we can listen." The ghost regarded her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Listen well, then. When the full mist comes, when it rolls in like a tide, don't follow. Don't answer the calls. Don't turn your back. It pulls. It claims." As he finished speaking, the fog surged higher, swallowing the apparitions. The voices faded into a low moan, then silence. Power flickered. Emergency lights died for 3 heartbeats, plunging us into black. When they returned, the fog had retreated. Outside again, clinging to the windows, but no longer inside. The frost was melting, dripping in rivulets down the glass. We stood there, breathing hard. No one moved for almost a minute. Then P.F.C. Ellis, one of the quieter guys who'd been standing at the back, stumbled forward. He'd been with us the whole time, except he hadn't. His uniform was soaked, boots caked in thick black river mud that smelled of centuries-old silt. His eyes were unfocused. I was outside," he muttered. "They were marching. They pulled me along. Said I knew the way to the ford. I couldn't stop walking." We got him to the aid station. "Hypothermia," the doc said. "Mild disorientation, standard post-field care diagnosis." But when they cleaned his boots, lab analysis later showed soil composition matching pre-1900 riverbed strata. Strata that hadn't seen daylight since the valley was last flooded in the 1880s. That night changed everything. We stopped joking about ghosts. We started comparing notes. We started watching the weather reports obsessively because Harlan was right. October wasn't over. And every night after that, when the wind shifted east off the river, we could smell it again. Wet wool, black powder, and the faint metallic promise of mist coming to claim more. Chapter 4, Echoes of the Lost. My name is First Lieutenant Daniel Orr, U.S. Army Infantry, West Point class of 2010. 3 combat deployments, 2 to Afghanistan, 1 to Syria, before I took command of a training company at Shenandoah Valley Maneuver. Training area in summer 2018. I was 31, married, one kid back in Fayetteville. I thought I'd seen every kind of strange the Army could throw at you. IED ghosts in the dust, night vision contacts that weren't there when you replayed the feed. soldiers swearing dead squadmates were still on patrol. I kept an open but skeptical mind. Hallucinations happen under stress. Fatigue lies. The brain fills gaps. But Block 7 was different. After the October 11th incident, the night the fog came inside, the frost-mapped old battle lines on the windows, and PFC Ellis came back covered in century-old river mud. I ordered a quiet stand-down on night-land nav problems until we could get better weather data and more eyes on the perimeter. Officially, it was safety stand-down due to environmental hazards. Unofficially, I didn't want another soldier walking off into nothing and coming back speaking in 1864 cadence. I moved my company office into a converted supply room on the first floor of Block 7, so I could keep closer tabs. Most nights I stayed late, reviewing AARs, writing counseling statements, answering endless emails from higher-about training metrics. The building was quiet after 2,300. Just the hum of vending machines, the occasional drip from a leaky faucet in the latrine, and the low moan of wind through the pines outside. On the night of October 18th, exactly 1 year to the day since Sergeant Thorne's first sighting in 2017, I was alone in the office around 01:15. Thunder had been rumbling since dusk. A cold front was pushing down the valley. Rain hammered the roof in sheets. I was proofreading the next day's training schedule when the whispers started. Not loud, not dramatic. Just present. Like someone had left a radio on low volume in the next room. Yankees at the river crossing, skirmish line, 50 paces. Hold, damn you, hold till the captain gives word. I set the pen down. Listened. The voices were coming from the hallway, but also somehow from inside the walls, inside the filing cabinets, inside the air itself. I stood, opened the office door. The corridor stretched dark, except for the red emergency lights. No one there. But the whispers continued, clearer now. Mist's thick tonight, thicker than Cedar Creek. I stepped out, boots quiet, on the linoleum. The temperature dropped with every metre I walked. By the time I reached the central stairwell, my breath was visible again. The storage closet door, normally padlocked, was ajar. Light spilled out. Not electric light, but the warm, flickering orange of an open flame. I drew my Beretta, thumbed the safety off, and eased the door wider with my boot. Inside, the small room had transformed. A phantom campfire burned in the centre. No fuel, no smoke rising to the ceiling, just steady flames licking at nothing. Around it sat a dozen spectral soldiers in various states of butternut and grey. Some leaned on muskets, others cleaned bayonets with slow, practised motions. Their faces were gaunt, eyes sunken, but bright with awareness. They didn't look up at first. They just kept talking among themselves in low tones. At the head of the circle sat their captain, Jeremiah Hale, if the old photographs in the Luray Historical Society were accurate. Sabre across his knees, Ikepi low over his brow, a thin line of beard framing a mouth set in permanent determination. I cleared my throat. Identify yourselves. Every head turned at once. The firelight made their eyes reflect like polished obsidian. Captain Hale rose slowly. Captain Jeremiah Hale, 23rd Virginia Infantry, Army of Northern Virginia. And you, sir? First Lieutenant Daniel Orr, United States Army. This installation is under my command. A murmur rippled through the circle. Surprise, recognition, something like weary amusement. You wear the blue now, Hale said. Not accusatory, just stating fact. "I wear what the nation issues," I replied. "This ground has been federal property since 1942. Hale nodded once. "We know. We've watched the iron horses roll in, the steel birds overhead, watched your blue soldiers march these same ridges, watched the mist take some of them too. I kept the pistol low but ready. What do you want here?" "To finish our patrol," he answered simply. "We were ordered to scout the North Fork Ford. We entered the mist. We never left it. Time stopped for us that night in '64. But the war ended. The world moved on. We did not." One of the sergeants, a stocky man with a bandaged arm, spoke up. "Every October the mist remembers. It opens. It calls. Sometimes your boys answer." I thought of Ellis, of the mud, of the frost maps. "And when they answer?" "They march with us," Hale said. "For a time. Some return. Some stay." The room grew colder. The fire flickered lower. I felt pressure building behind my eyes, like the start of a migraine. Visions flashed unbidden, marching columns in pouring rain, cannon flashes lighting the fog, our men vanishing one by one as if erased, screams swallowed by white nothing. I shook my head hard. "I'm not joining your patrol." Hale studied me. "We don't ask you to, but the mist is hungry tonight. It will try." As he spoke, the fog began seeping under the doorframe, curling around my boots. The temperature plunged. My fingers went numb on the pistol grip. I backed toward the hallway. "This ends now." Hale's expression softened. "Just a fraction." "It ended in 1864, Lieutenant. For us. For you, it's only beginning." I stepped through the doorway. The moment I crossed the threshold, the storage room snapped back to normal. Dusty shelves, cardboard boxes, padlock dangling open. No fire, no soldiers, just the faint smell of wood smoke lingering in the air. I returned to my office, locked the door, sat down hard. My hands shook. I pulled the Beretta apart, checked the chamber, still loaded, still cold. Proof I hadn't dreamed it. At 0347, my radio crackled. Sergeant Harlan's voice, tense. "Sir, it's Thorne. He stepped into a fog pocket during perimeter check. Gone 45 minutes. We just found him 2 clicks east, sitting on the riverbank. He's got a rusted Confederate button clutched in his fist. Keeps repeating, 'The captain says, hold the line.'" I stared at the wall. Outside, the rain had stopped. The fog was lifting. But I knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting. Chapter 5. Hunting the Ghosts. My name is Staff Sergeant Kayla Nguyen, MOS 89E, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Technician, 10th Mountain Division. I drew a 4-month TDY to Shenandoah Valley Maneuver. Training area in late September 2018 to support range clearance and UXO sweeps during the heavy brigade rotations. I'd been on the post less than 2 weeks when the stories started circulating in earnest. Reyes hearing marching boots, Vasquez seeing shadows in the mirror, Ellis coming back coated in ancient river mud, Lieutenant Oars face to face with Captain Hale in the storage room. By mid-October, the barracks in Block 7 felt like a pressure cooker with a stuck valve. I don't scare easy. I've crawled under live ordnance in Afghanistan, disarmed IEDs with hands that wouldn't stop shaking afterward, watched friends get medevaced in pieces. But this wasn't something you could defuse with a hook and line or a water cannon. This was something that moved through walls, whispered through vents, and left physical evidence no one could explain away with paperwork. After Lieutenant Orr's encounter on the 18th, finding Thorne miles away, clutching a rusted CSA button and muttering about holding the line. We knew we couldn't just wait for the month to pass. Ignoring it wasn't working. Reporting it up the chain got us polite nods and psych referrals. So a handful of us, me, Wright the medic, Vasquez from Signals, Reyes and Harlan, decided to treat it like any other persistent threat. Gather intel, establish patterns, contain the area, and, if possible, neutralize. We framed it as an unauthorized environmental monitoring drill. Borrowed gear from supply under the guise of testing new IR/thermal sensors for night ops. Motion-activated cameras, EMF detectors, digital audio recorders, even a couple of cheap laser grids we rigged across hallways. We set up a makeshift ops center in the common area on the second floor. Laptops running feeds, a whiteboard mapping cold spots and sighting locations. Coffee urn perpetually on. Night 1, October 20th. Nothing dramatic. EMF baseline readings hovered normal. Cameras caught the usual. Soldiers heading to the head at 0200, vending machine flickering. But the audio picked up faint background murmur. Too low to decipher, like conversation heard through a thick door. Night 2 we pushed harder. I stayed on watch from 2300 to 0400 with Wright. Around 0130 the EMF spiked in the east wing latrine, jumping from 0.2 milligauss ambient to 12.4 in seconds. We moved in, NVGs down. The mirrors were fogging from the inside again, frost tracing what looked like regimental formation lines. Then the whispers started, clear this time on the recorder. Regiment, form on the colours. Captain's orders, hold till relief. We held position. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in under a minute. My breath fogged the NVG lenses. Then shapes appeared in the mirror reflections. Not in the room itself, but only visible in the glass. A full company strength, maybe 80 figures in grey, muskets shouldered, standing at parade rest. They weren't looking at us. They were looking past us, toward some unseen horizon. I spoke first, voice low. This is Staff Sergeant Nguyen, U.S. Army. Identify. The reflections shifted. One figure, a sergeant with a bandaged sleeve, stepped forward in the mirror. His lips moved, but the sound came from behind us, from the empty shower stalls. We are the 23rd Virginia. Lost October 17th, 1864. The mist took us on patrol. We march still. Wright asked the question we'd all been turning over. Why now? Why us? Because your wars echo ours, the sergeant answered. The thunder of your guns, the tread of your columns, they call us back. The mist widens. It hungers for new blood to fill the ranks. I felt it then, a physical tug at my sternum, like someone had hooked a line to my plate carrier and was pulling gently but insistently. The laser grid flickered, motion sensors lit up across the hallway. The apparitions in the mirror began to move, not walking, but sliding sideways, as if the glass were a window they were trying to climb through. Back out, I ordered. We retreated step by step. The pull intensified. My boots felt heavier, like walking through deepening mud. Wright grabbed my arm, hauled me through the doorway. The moment we crossed the threshold, the tug vanished. The mirrors cleared. The EMF dropped to 0. We reviewed the footage later. The cameras caught nothing. No reflections, no frost, no figures. Just us standing in an empty latrine, talking to thin air. But the audio was clean. Every word the sergeant spoke, time-stamped, with background sounds of distant cannon and rain that hadn't fallen that night. Night 3, we went all in, full squad in the common area, lights low, recorders rolling. At 23:45, the mist arrived outside, thicker than before, pressing against the windows like it wanted in. Power flickered. Then the apparitions came, not in mirrors, not as shadows, but standing in the room. The full regiment, or what remained of it, formed ranks down the length of the corridor. Faces I recognise from history plates. Hale at the front, on sabre drawn, eyes fixed ahead. They marched in place, boots silent on linoleum. The air smelled of black powder and wet canvas. Hale spoke, voice carrying like he was addressing troops on a battlefield. "You seek to hunt us. You cannot. We are bound here, but you can release us." "How?" Harlan asked. "Remember us. Speak our names. Mark the ground where we fell. Let the living know we did not run. We did not desert. We were taken." As he finished, the mist seeped under doors, around window frames. The pull returned, stronger. Reyes staggered. Vasquez clutched the table. I felt it worst, like gravity tilting sideways, urging me to step forward into the ranks. "Fall back!" I shouted. We moved as one toward the stairwell. The apparitions advanced, not aggressively, but inexorably. Hale raised his sabre in salute. "Do not let the mist claim more," he said, "or we grow stronger." We reached the stairs. The door slammed behind us of its own accord. The pull ceased. Outside, the fog began to thin. Later, analysis showed the cameras glitched for exactly 17 seconds. October 17th, the anniversary day. During that window, the footage displayed grainy, silent images. Men in grey running through fog, vanishing one by one, muskets dropping, kepis tumbling. Then static. We pulled the plug on the drill the next morning. Command called it equipment malfunction and overactive imaginations. But we kept the recordings. We kept the button Thorne had found. And every night after, when the wind came off the river, we checked the windows. The mist was still out there, watching, waiting, and it knew our names now. Chapter 6. The Vanishing Squad. My name is Private First Class Tyler Jenkins, formerly of 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment Training Cadre at Shenandoah Valley Maneuver Training Area. I was the roommate specialist Reyes talked about in his account, the 19-year-old who thought the whole thing was just barracks ghost stories, until it wasn't. By late October 2018, the post was on edge. After Staff Sergeant Nguyen's team captured the regiment on audio and saw the 17-second glitch of men vanishing into fog, Command finally issued a low-profile, increased safety posture for night operations. No solo patrols, buddy system mandatory after 2,200 extra MPS on the perimeter roads. Officially, it was for weather and terrain hazards. Everyone knew better, and I drew perimeter security on the night of October 25th. A battalion live-fire night attack exercise. My sector was the tree line along the east flank of the training fields, roughly 200 metres from Block 7 barracks. Standard kit, M4, 3 mags, nods, radio, chem lights. My battle buddy was Sergeant Harlan, same E7 who'd warned Reyes months earlier. We moved in 10-minute shifts, one watching the woods while the other scanned the open ground toward the river. Around 20:33, the wind died completely. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just dead silence that pressed on your eardrums. Harlan noticed it first. "Jenkins, you feel that?" I nodded. The air had turned thick, like breathing through wet cotton. Then the mist arrived. It didn't roll and slow like normal valley fog. It surged, fast, deliberate. A white wall advancing from the river bottom, climbing the slope, swallowing the firing points, the mock village, the motor pool in seconds. Visibility dropped to 5 meters, then 3, then arm's length. My nods went green static. Thermal washed out to uniform grey. Radio hissed white noise, no matter what channel I tried. "Harlan, comms down," I whispered. "Stay close. Fall back to the rally point." We turned toward Block 7. That's when the shapes appeared. At first, just silhouettes in the fog, tall, upright, moving in column formation. Then details resolved. Kepis, shell jackets, bayonets glinting dull under moonlight that shouldn't have pierced the mist. Dozens of them. Maybe the full remnant of the 23rd Virginia. They marched parallel to us, 50 meters off, silent except for the occasional low murmur. "Extend the line. Skirmishers forward. Yankees are across the ford. Hold, boys, hold." Harlan raised his rifle instinctively. "Halt! Identify yourselves." The column didn't stop, but one figure peeled off. Captain Hale himself, sabre in hand, striding straight toward us through the swirling white. He stopped 10 feet away. Close enough I could see the frayed braid on his cuffs, the hollows under his eyes, the faint scar running from temple to jaw. "You wear the blue," he said, voice calm but carrying like he was speaking across a battlefield. "Yet you tread the same ground we lost." Harlan kept his weapon up. "We're not your enemy, Captain. This is our post now." Hale's gaze shifted to me. I felt it like ice water down my spine. "Young one," he said, "you've heard us calling. You've walked our halls. The mist knows your face." I swallowed. I didn't answer. Not yet. The fog tightened around us. I felt the pull Sergeant Nguyen described, cold fingers at my ribs, urging me forward. My boots slid an inch on wet grass. Harlan grabbed my plate carrier, yanked me back. "Don't look at them," he barked. "Eyes on me! We move now!" We backed away, step by step. The regiment kept pace, not closing, but never falling behind. More voices joined, pleading, angry, resigned. Join the ranks, eternal duty. No more cold camps, no more hunger. The war never ended for us. My legs felt leaden. Each step took effort, like wading upstream against a current. Harlan was breathing hard, face slick with sweat despite the cold. Then the line broke. 2 privates from another platoon, assigned to the same perimeter, bolted from their position 50 meters left. They sprinted toward the barracks lights, visible as faint yellow smears through the fog. Bad move. Never run from something that doesn't chase with noise. The regiment shifted, not aggressively, just pivoted as one. The grey ranks flowed toward the running men like water finding a channel. Hale raised his sabre once. "Form on the stragglers." The privates vanished into the mist mid-stride. No scream, no flash, just gone. Their radios crackled once, garbled voices saying, "They're here! They're here!" Then static. Harlan and I froze. The pull on me intensified. Visions hit like fragments of old film, marching through endless white, comrades disappearing one by one. Captain Hale's voice barking orders that grew fainter each night, and the same river ford, always just out of reach. I stumbled. Harlan hauled me upright. "Fight it, Jenkins! Think of something real. Your mum's cooking, your girl back home. Anything." I pictured my mum's kitchen in Georgia, smell of fried chicken, radio playing old country. The pull eased just enough. We reached the barracks steps. Hale and his men halted at the edge of the gravel lot. The captain lowered his sabre in what looked like formal salute. "You may keep this one," he said to Harlan, "but the mist remembers. It will call again." The fog receded as suddenly as it came, rolling back toward the river like a tide going out. Power returned in the barracks. Lights snapped on. MPS arrived minutes later, with vehicle headlights cutting through the thinning white. Search parties went out at first light. No sign of the 2 missing privates. Their weapons, rucks, even boot prints erased. Just 2 sets of drag marks, in the mud leading nowhere, ending at the old river ford where the 23rd vanished in 1864. Official report. Personnel unaccounted for during adverse weather conditions, presumed lost in terrain. SR suspended after 48 hours. But Harlan and I knew. We'd seen the salute. We'd felt the pull. That night I lay in my bunk, lights on, Reyes across from me, silent for once, and stared at the ceiling. The whispers were gone from the hallway. But every time I closed my eyes, I heard Captain Hale's parting words. "The mist remembers." And somewhere deep in my chest, a small, cold part of me wondered how long it would wait before it called my name again. Chapter 7. Breaking the Curse. My name is Captain, retired, Elias Thorne. And I was the sergeant who first reported seeing the grey ranks in the mist back in October 2017, 2 full years before the incidents escalated to the point you've just heard. By late October 2018, I had already been reassigned stateside from a forward operating base in Syria, but the Valley pulled me back. I requested extension of my TDY at Shenandoah Valley Maneuver Training Area specifically because of what I'd seen. Command thought I was chasing ghosts. Maybe I was. But after the night of October 25th, when 2 privates vanished mid-stride into the fog, when PFC Jenkins felt the pull so strong he could taste river mud in his mouth, when Captain Hale saluted us like we were old adversaries who'd finally earned respect, I knew waiting for the month to end wasn't enough. The mist wasn't going to tire. It was growing bolder. I approached Lieutenant Orr the morning of October 27th. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, same as the rest of us. Dark circles, 1,000-yard stare, fingers tapping restless patterns on the conference table in the company CP. I laid it out plain. "Sir, we've documented everything. Audio, video glitches, soil samples, eyewitnesses from multiple MOSs. Command won't touch it. Psych says shared delusion. But we both know better. The 23rd isn't hostile, they're trapped. And every time one of our guys answers the call, even for a second, the rift widens." Orr rubbed his temples. "What are you proposing, Thorne?" "Resolution, not confrontation. Acknowledgement." He listened while I walked him through the idea. No exorcism, no seance nonsense. Just military honours for men who never came home. A quiet memorial on the exact ground where the patrol disappeared. A simple bronze plaque, names if we could find them, coordinates pulled from 1864 maps, cross-referenced with modern GPS. Read from diaries, muster rolls, letters home that never reached their destinations. Give the regiment what the army never did. Official recognition that they didn't desert, didn't run. They were taken. Orr was skeptical but desperate. "Higher will never approve a plaque for Confederate dead on federal property." "They don't have to know it's Confederate," I said. "Call it a marker for unidentified personnel lost during reconnaissance, October 1864. Neutral language, historical preservation. We do it after hours, chaplain present, no press. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we're no worse off. He stared at the wall a long time, then nodded once. One condition, you lead it. We moved fast. Chaplain Major Rebecca Lang, a soft-spoken Episcopal priest who'd served with the 82nd in Iraq, agreed without hesitation. She'd heard enough battlefield ghost stories to know some things don't fit in field manuals. Sergeant Harlan sourced a small granite marker from a local stonecutter. Discreet, no stars and bars. Just etched text. In memory of the men of the 23rd Virginia Infantry, lost in the line of duty. October 17th, 1864. They held the line. We chose the river ford itself, shallow crossing point, now marked by a gravel pull-off, and a faded interpretive sign from the Park Service. October 30, 2200 hours. No moon. Fog already gathering low over the water like it knew we were coming. 15 of us gathered. Reyes, Vasquez, Wright, Guyen, Jenkins, Orr, Harlan, a handful of others who'd seen or felt the pull. No rifles, no rank insignia visible. Just flashlights, the plaque wrapped in canvas, and a folding table we'd borrowed from the chapel. Chaplain Lang began with a reading from Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. Then she read from a letter found in the National Archives, a private in the 23rd writing home 3 days before the patrol. Ma, the valley is beautiful but cruel. The mist comes sudden and stays long. Tell Pa I'll be home when the war ends. Pray for clear weather. We set the marker into the soft riverbank soil. Permanent concrete base already poured that afternoon under guise of erosion control repair. Harlan read the names we'd confirmed from muster rolls. Captain Jeremiah Hale, First Sergeant Elias Booker, Private. Josiah Tate, and 37 others whose records simply ended mid-sentence. As the last name fell silent, the fog thickened. Not aggressively this time. Slow, almost reverent. Shapes appeared along the far bank, the regiment, full strength now, standing at parade rest. Faces clearer than ever, exhausted but no longer frantic. Captain Hale stepped forward across the water. The current didn't touch his boots. He stopped at the marker, looked down at the etched words, then up at us. You remembered, he said. Voice carried clear over the water. We did not run. Or answered, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. You served. You're honoured. Go home, Captain. Hale saluted. Slow, regulation, palm out. The regiment followed as one. Then, for the first time, they turned. Not marching away, but simply facing west toward the Blue Ridge, toward whatever lay beyond the mist for them. The fog rose like a curtain lifting. It enveloped the ranks gently, no violence, no pull. One by one the figures faded, not erased, but released. Last to go was Hale. He lowered his sabre, gave a single nod, and dissolved into white. The mist cleared completely within minutes. Stars appeared overhead. The river ran normal again, cold, shallow, ordinary. We stood there until 200, waiting for something else. Nothing came, no whispers, no footsteps, no frost on the windows. Back at Block 7 when we returned. The marker remains. If you visit the pull-off near Luray today, you'll find it half hidden by tall grass, weathered but legible. Most passers-by assume it's another Civil War wayside. A few veterans stop, read the date, and feel something shift in the air, something finally at rest. Since that night, no one at SVMTA has reported the mist behaving strangely. No cold spots in the barracks, no shadows in mirrors, no voices asking for the ford. Block 7 is just another concrete building now, drafty, loud, ordinary. But every October, on the anniversary, a small group of us still gathers at the riverbank after dark. We don't speak much. We just listen. And when the wind comes off the water clean, no gunpowder, no wet wool, we know they finally found their way home. Some wars end on paper. Some end with a plaque and a salute. And some end when the living finally say the names of the lost.